Today our guest is Marcus Guiliano. He is the author of 50 Mistakes Business Owners Make. Time is a very precious commodity that many often waste. When you own and operate your own business, time can either be highly profitable or a significant drain on that rather precious resource. Marcus has been in the service industry his whole life and successfully and profitably runs his own restaurant. He's now in his 14th year. In 50 Mistakes Business Owners Make, he offers a profound opportunity to lay bare the costly mistakes you might make by understanding the ones he has made. Welcome, Marcus.
Glad to be here.
You're going deep on this, right?
Try to go deep. We could go deeper because 50 mistakes is only like the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, really?
There can be sequel after sequel here.
Of the 50 mistakes, you have the book broken into sections that have to do with operating the business. And one of them is the section on advertising and promotion. And you have 4 mistakes that people make there. You don't have a billboard. You don't know how or when to tell a good story. Your guests don't really know who you are. And you blew your entire advertising budget in one place. So let's start there.
Absolutely.
What is your billboard?
So, your billboard is your platform. It's your story. It's what leads into your story. It's just about you getting out there. We have with 25 years ago, we didn't have many options to advertise or publicize our business or express ourselves. And now we can express ourselves wherever we want, on a blog, on a video, via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So our billboard is much more than just a billboard these days. As a billboard that's on the highway. So that's sort of like that was the billboard, but now here's the new face of the billboards of today. And we really have to understand that everything we do has the power to be up online somewhere, whether we're putting it there or somebody else is putting it there. So, figure out what your passion is, what your story, what your why is, and then all of a sudden start telling everybody like crazy, and that's your billboard.
So as the owner of Aroma Time, and that's Aroma, Thyme,
like the herb,
like the herb. What is your billboard?
So our billboard is many different facets. I consider myself a person who promotes. So every day, the first thing that I do is think of how am I going to promote my business today. I can be the best chef in the world. I can be the best accountant in the world. I can be the best whatever in my world, in your world, in the Tri-County, New York State region. But if nobody knows about me, I'm not going to be able to survive. So the billboard is to get out there and stand up and tell your story, which the second one in there is the follow-up is telling your story. We all have a story of why we're doing something. Mm-hmm. And we don't understand, or a lot of people underestimate the power of the story, and they don't tell the story properly. Now, I'm not saying to go out and fabricate a story, but there's always something interesting about what we do. Like, what brought me to cook?
Something authentic.
Something authentic. I remember 4 or 5 years old, I'm helping my grandmother roll out pasta. That's the true Italian family and kitchen, and that inspired me at a young age to appreciate homemade food, and that led to me to wanting to cook myself, and then it led to me wanting to put my accounting book down for a cookbook. So there's a whole story that we can intertwine in there that is all factual based, and a lot of restaurateurs and a lot of business owners just don't look back far enough and say, well, here's my story. How did I get here? There's a story of why I'm in Ellenville. It might not be, a story that, hey, that might not be my first selling point, but I'm in Ellenville because I believe in Ellenville, and my kids go to school there, and my wife was born and raised there, and it's my hometown, and I'm trying to make my hometown a better place.
You talked about putting down, in terms of this story, you talked about putting down your accounting book for
Cookbook.
For a cookbook. So did you begin planning to be an accountant?
I started taking business courses, and I wasn't going to be an accountant, but as I'm sitting there at night, like, do I go do my accounting 101 homework, or do I flip open a cookbook? So there was a conflict of interest going on there, but it was really good that I did take business courses, and I do have a business background because I needed that as a chef.
Yeah.
To understand the
absolutely.
mechanics of the finances of the business.
To transition from chef to restaurateur.
Exactly.
Exactly.
See, anybody can be the best chef, the best baker, and we all have a story of, oh, Sally makes the best muffins, and Sally should be have her own cupcake shop. But Sally doesn't know anything about running a cupcake shop. She can just make the cupcakes.
So what was you say 50 mistakes owners make. What was the mistake that triggered your understanding that you would have to do something about billboarding, building a platform, and telling your story?
Well, we opened in Ellenville. And Ellenville, when we opened in 2003, people always said, well, how'd you survive, the crash of '07 or '09, or how'd you survive these markets? And I said, well, I opened in Ellenville. It was worse when we opened in 2003 than I've experienced anything in the last 14 years. And I learned very quickly, and before that, I was always into self-promoting. I always like to toot my own horn, so to speak. If I'm doing something, I got to tell people. And I learned a long time ago in previous jobs that for something to get out there, I'd have to make a press release. I'd have to formulate a press release and send it out. I'd have to network with people that wrote articles on what I was doing. And I remember one time I was at a big sustainability conference, and I had hired a PR person, and she was there at the same conference, and I was in Colorado at the time, and we were actually here in New York. And she was doing one or two things for me at an exuberant price, by the way. So at the end of the conference, I sat down with her, and I said, Sylvia, look what I got. She goes, what do you have, Marcus? And I go, I have the whole list of every single reporter in this room. And she goes, how did you get that? I said, I went and asked for it, and they gave it to me. So here's my PR person I'm paying an exuberant amount of money who doesn't know who all the press is in the room, and I have the whole press list. So I reached out to all the press there. I sent messages. I sent my press kit. Back then, we used to have a press kit.
Yes, that you had to put stamps on and put in the mail, yes.
So I sent out, I think, 80 press kits after I got home from this conference. And so I kind of realized that, hey, no matter who you hire to do things, are they going to do it as good as you? And what exactly is, of course we have to hire people, so we have to rely on people. That's a big part of the book, and we have to be able to delegate. But you also have to know what you're doing as well. And you have to surround yourself, obviously, with a good team. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm learning a lot about PR and marketing, and this was going to be a very, very strong part of my business once I opened in Ellenville that I soon realized. And when you first open, like we talked about, one of the mistakes was blowing all your marketing budget. When we got through our first summer, and of course every summer is better than the winter, so we had extra money in the bank at the end of the summer, and we blew all of this extra money on marketing that wasn't working. And we were like, oh my gosh, going into January, we were like, this is our 1 year anniversary, and we're flat out broke here. And it's just, this is crazy that. And from that point, it forced me to start one of our best promotions ever, and one of our best practices ever, building a database. And I learned how to communicate with my database via email and do direct response marketing. So I always like to tell a story. Imagine if you baked cookies, and you sat and baked 12 dozen cookies, 144 cookies, and you sat on the corner of the street. And it took you 8 hours to sell those cookies. Well, the next time when you baked cookies, why don't you call the people who bought your cookies the first time? You could sell out in an hour. And that was sort of an inspiration of that story on me, and to reaching out to the customers who had already been in my door for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And I was able to sell a fantastic promotional offer for our 1 year anniversary that made us have an incredibly busy January and February.
And what was it?
It was called our anniversary offer. And it started out as a contest where, okay, I sent an email out and say, hey, this is exactly what the email said. We usually spend $450 on an ad for a month, and we put it in the XYZ magazine. But I said, instead of us spending $450 on an ad, I'm going to give away $450 worth of gift cards in $25 increments. So within literally 30 seconds, the first email comes back in. I'll take a gift card. Within 10 minutes, our inbox was so flooded. And back then, we only had 400 people, 500 people on our database.
Mm-hmm.
But our inbox was flooded with responses. I looked at my wife. I said, I got to be honest with you, I'm not stopping at $450. Everybody who emailed me today, tomorrow, the next day, whatever, I'm sending every single one of them a gift card.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Now, you're saying you blew your $400 budget. Something like a gift card means that essentially the money is in-house. Yes, you have a food cost and for those people who take the gift card, but initially your cost is your email and your gift card, right?
Yes.
What was the cost of the gift card?
It was something we printed in-house, and it cost us virtually nothing.
So like a postcard.
It's like a postcard.
You didn't use necessarily a standard. And I think this is important because sometimes when people are trying to get going, and especially they'll go to a business workshop, they'll go to these things where they are essentially selling them packages that these companies make, and that's good because that's the business they're in. But sometimes you can get overwhelmed when you get down in the weeds on something as basic as that, saying, well, I didn't have the money for the marketing, so the cost of buying a gift card, and then I have to, and in fact, I know from my own business how you have to buy those, and there's a setup fee, and this, that, and the other. But here you are doing something very practical that's within your control.
It was on cardstock, and it got sent out in the mail with a stamp on it, and it was so simple to produce. And we'd been open 12 months exactly, 13 months now, and it was our best month for our 13 months of being open. So I was spending the $450 on an ad anyway. The money was leaving my restaurant anyway. So I switched mindset and said, why don't I reward the people who've already been into my restaurant? And in actuality, okay, so I gave them a $25 gift card. They in turn, what does it cost me? It cost me 30% for labor, 30% for food. So I still have a buffer in there. So I'm not giving away a full 25.
Exactly.
But the amazing thing that happened was people appreciated the generosity. And they came in, and of course they spent far more than $25. They spent $50, $75, $100, $150. So they were spending a well above and beyond. Now here's the thing. That ad that I was placing looked great. Looked fantastic. It was done by a professional graphic artist that the magazine employed. It looked great. Our logo looked great. But I couldn't measure what it was doing. I couldn't measure its return on investment. And now the biggest thing I teach to anybody is, if you can't measure it, don't do it. Now there's certain things with Facebook and things like that, and responding to reviews and getting on TripAdvisor and Yelp. There's certain things you have to do where you're not going to be able to measure it. But if somebody's walking into your storefront and saying, I have this great offer, this great ad for you to place, this great promotion for you to do, you need to look at them and say, can I track my return on investment? If you can't track it, you don't do it. Now here's the flip side of that. After you track it, you have to analyze it, and what works, keep doing. Because if we all went to the casino and we all put $1 in and we got $10 back, would you stop pulling the slot machine? You wouldn't stop. But if you were getting 50 cents back, you'd stop after your first $10 was up. So this is like marketing. Figure out what works, and keep going for it and going for it and going for it. So for example, I know that birthdays are my number one promotion. I want everybody's birthday that I can come in contact with, right?
Exactly.
At those kind of numbers. Anniversaries are huge. So there's all certain things that we know that through monitoring that we know works, and keep doing those.
When you are speaking, of course, you're coming at this as a restaurateur, but what you're talking about, especially as we've just been talking about marketing, obviously translates into other industries, into other sectors. As you look across the board and you see, one of the points that I was really struck by in your 50 list, one was not being strong enough or confident enough, I think is the word you use, to speak with your competitors. But you also speak about cross-promoting across sectors and with other people.
That's super important. So, of course, competition is a good thing. Of course, some people say, well, no, competition isn't a good thing. Competition gets you on your feet. It makes you be creative. It puts pressure on you. Some people that have no competition, they never feel the pressure. So for me, the pressure is I need to be the best restaurant in my town, in my village, in the county. And how can I do that? I have to do another promotion. I have to do something unique. I have to do something fun. I have to do something exciting. And there's many things we do. I'll take people on hikes. How many other restaurants take people on hikes? We do handwritten postcards, and we send those out to our guests after they've eaten with us.
How many restaurants take their guests out on hikes? We'll find out more about that when we come back.